Yes.
This is very awkward, however.
It is.
It is, yeah, I know. See, they should actually just be here, shouldn't they? And the men wouldn't have to worry about stuffing around with stuff like this. And that's just not going to stay. It's going to be hilarious. They have to watch it anyway, so that's their problem. Okay, so the outcome, folks. First things first. What percentage of your final grade does the outcome contribute?
30.
No.
It's close.
It is close, but it's not.
40.
More than that. 40. 40%. 40%. That means that it is the single biggest grade that makes up your research project. Okay? What does the outcome get marked on? Don't say performance standards because that's obvious, but do you know what aspects of the performance standards we're looking for?
The ones that apply to us.
Yeah, they do, that apply to the outcome, but do we know what they are? Two things that you need to know: synthesis and substantiation. Do you know what those mean?
Nope.
Your ability to put information together, your ability to demonstrate where that information has come from. Okay? They are the two key things that we're looking for in your outcome. Now, there are many, many ways of being able to structure your outcome. Everybody's research is different. Everybody's outcome has the potential to be unique as well. You don't have to do it as a written piece. Probably about 90% of research project outcomes are written, but it doesn't have to be. You can come up with PowerPoints, videos, magazine pages, letters to the editor, a actual physical piece of machinery, you know, with synthesis and substantiation incorporated into it in some way. But you can do all kinds of different formats, okay? But because the vast majority are done as a written format, that's what I'm going to talk about here today, how to structure that. If you want to do a different type of format, you need to think, how can I apply these things into what I want to do? How can I still make sure that in the video that I'm going to do, talking about the car restoration that I've done, how am I still going to get in where my information has come from and a vast range of that information? Okay, so how am I going to get that in there?
So what was substantiation again?
Substantiation is about where your information has come from. So that's about your sources of your information. Synthesis is about bringing different types of information together. So synthesis is using your web-based articles that you found, backing them up with some of the books that you might have used, backing them up with some of the interviews, backing them up with some of the surveys and stuff that you've used. Okay? And those two things then come together. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, first things first, I can say about outcome. One thing that, I'll use what Ms. Brazzy's put up there. On the top of your page, if you're doing your written outcome, it's going to say Stage 2 research, it's going to have outcome, and it's going to have your SACE number on it, okay? Nothing else. It shouldn't identify you, although SACE Board is now understanding that it's much harder in research project because of the nature of what you guys do to de-identify completely. Used to be the first couple of years, you know, we had to go through and like white out every reference to Moonta so that they didn't know that these were the ones from Moonta. It's not possible, so don't stress about it too much, but that's the information that should be on each page. Then, the biggest thing I can say about this is don't overcomplicate things. You know what that stands for? Yes? No? Keep it simple. Yeah, no, I won't. That's stupid. Okay? Keep it simple. So where possible, simplify what you're doing. Okay? So where possible, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. And one of the big things I could say about that is that students always tell me, oh, I put in lots of big words to try and make myself sound really smart, Miss Cross. Well, the fact that you've put in lots of big words, great. The fact that they're in the completely wrong context, not so good, okay? If you don't understand what you're writing, don't expect someone reading it to understand it. Keep it simple. And that even comes down to your sentence structures and things. You know yourself that your English teachers have been telling you for years, you don't want run-on sentences, you don't want compound sentences. A sentence has a topic and it has like one thought to it. All right, keep it simple. Follow all of those rules that your English teachers have been telling you about for years. All right, the structure of the outcome. The three things that you need to do. You need to tell me what it is you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me. And then you're going to tell me what you have told me.
What? Excuse me?
It's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it?
Tell me what
it is you're going to tell me. Tell me what you've told me. So if you break that down into the three parts of an essay, what are they? What's this? This is your intro. This is the middle, or the guts of it. This is your conclusion. Okay, don't overcomplicate it. In your introduction, tell me what it is you're going to tell me. For my research project, I'm going to cover the topic of, and actually list what your question is. Like, you actually need to tell me in the first paragraph, this is my question. Okay? Tell me what it is you're going to tell me. And then in that first little bit, I'm going to do this by covering ABC. And there's your focus areas or your key findings. In the guts of it, all right, this is where you give me all of that detail. And if you've told me that you're going to cover ABC, in the middle, what should I be saying? There's my paragraph on A, or my section on A. There's my section on B. There's my section on C. Okay? In the conclusion, I have looked at this question from the point of ABC. My conclusion is, all right? So break it down to the most simple way you can. Tell me what it is you're going to tell me, and then tell me what you've told me. Okay, so keep it simple. And yes, you rehash or you recover. So this is setting out where you're going to go. This is giving me all that information. This, nothing new should be raised in your conclusion. You guys know that. Your English teachers tell you that. A conclusion should simply go back over, these are the main points that are raised, and it leads me to this outcome. Okay, so nothing new comes into that. Now, you've got 2,000 words to play with. How do you split it up? How do we split it? We've got around 2,000 words in this section, in the intro. I'd be looking at somewhere between possibly 100 to 150. I might go as high as 250. Depends how much information you need to give to set your topic, and like how big, you know, your focus areas and stuff are going to be. Most of your information is going to be in this middle section. So if you've got 3 or 4 focus areas or 3 or 4 key findings that you want to cover, you're going to need probably somewhere between maybe 480 to 520 words for each of them. If you've got 4, it's probably going to be closer to about 400. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So if you've split your big question into 3 areas or 3 key findings, you've got to fit all of the information about each of those key findings into that amount of words. That's not a whole lot, because if you've got one of your key findings pages set up with 6 or 7 different references on it.
So is that 480 to 520
per key finding, per focus question? Okay, so with yours it might be what do one of your key finding areas or key focus areas might be. Yeah, okay, so you've only got that many words to talk about your engine rebuild. All right, which when you break it down that way, well, when you break it down that way, it's not a lot, is it? Yeah. It's not a lot. So you start thinking about this as, oh my God, I've got 2,000 words to write. And then all of a sudden, you've got 6 or 7 pieces of information you want to put into one of these key finding areas. And you're suddenly, oh my God, I haven't got enough words to write about it. Okay? Keep that in mind.
I'll be all right.
So that's per area or key finding. Okay. The conclusion, you need to leave yourself enough words in your conclusion to be able to sum up what you've told me, and the most important thing, to resolve your question. Tell me what the answer to your question actually is. Okay? So hopefully, if you've done the maths, you've left yourself somewhere around about 250 words, approximately. to sum it up, all right, having looked at my question and having looked at the areas of A, B, C and D, it's quite obvious from the evidence that I have presented that the answer is, okay, and you resolve your question. You've got to get that resolution of that question into the 2,000 words. Now, as far as word counts go, I hear people say all the time, oh, but you're allowed to go 10% over. There is absolutely nothing on the SACE website that says you can go over, all right? During marking of SACE work, it's made pretty clear that when you believe you've come to the end of 2,000 words, that's where you stop marking, all right? And if you think that I can't tell the difference between a piece of work that's 2,500 words and a piece of work that's 2,000 words, you're kidding yourself. Most teachers who have had experience in this are getting very good at working out that's around 2,000 words. You just kind of get a bit of a feeling, yeah, no, the students submitted quite a bit more. There will be some leeway given, but there is no overall general you're allowed to have 10% extra, so don't bank on it. Work to the guidelines that you've been given, okay? Which means that you need to think very carefully about what's going into this part in particular. All right, so are you with me so far? Yeah. All right, questions at the moment? All clear as mud? Okay. Now, you guys know that English is definitely not my strong suit, all right? As far as I'm trying to teach you guys how to set up an essay, all right? You're looking at the wrong person. You've had a lot of your English teachers give you a lot of information about how to do this over the past years, but what I'm going to do is just give you, I suppose, some of the, not really the tips, but some of the things that I look for in what I'm marking with the research project with you guys. Those flies. And some of the ways, I suppose, that English teachers have told me to work with structure as far as an essay and stuff goes, okay? You might have heard something different from someone else, and that's fine. You might have a set way of doing things yourself already, and that's fine, because remember, everyone's is going to be slightly different. But this is just to give you a bit of an idea of what I'm looking for. Okay, so first things first, in the intro, when you're writing an introduction, it's always good to have a hook to start with. So a sentence to introduce your topic or your question that's going to get someone's attention, that's going to grab their attention, okay? So a hook sentence, if possible. Within that introduction, your question should be in bold and all that usual stuff that, like we did in the proposal, okay, should be in bold, quite obvious, very early on. So, you know, by the time I've read the first paragraph and a half, I should understand exactly what your question is and what you're looking at. All right? Then something like, and there are a whole heap of sentence starters and examples in all those folders that I have on the public drive for you to go and have a look at. If you're thinking, God, I just don't know where to get started, have a look at what someone else has done. Copy it to start with, just to get something on paper. All right? And then we'll copy their structure, the sentencing and the wording type stuff, and then you make it your own. Okay? You don't just copy and paste it, you know that. But have a look at what others have done. There's a whole heap of sentence starters and stuff supplied for you as well. Use them, copy them to start with. But get something started. That's often the hardest part. Oh my God. Okay, so your intro, your hook sentence, your question becomes evident very quickly, and then something like, in order to fully investigate this topic, I will be looking at A, B, C. Okay, and what are these then? What do these relate to? Good girl, Maddie. Key findings. Or focus areas. Focus questions, whatever they happen to be. for you. Okay? And set them out very clearly as well. Now, one word about this. What are you taught in English about formal writing?
No personal pronouns.
Okay? We try to stay clear of personal pronouns, don't we? So we tend to try and stay clear of the I did this or I believe that. We formalise our work by using language which lets us say things like, you know, the topic will be covered by investigating the areas of, not I investigated this topic, why? Okay, so you can formalise the language. Now, formalising the language and being able to do that is a skill, and it sets you at a bit of a higher level as well. All right, be aware of that. So one thing that you can do, if you can take those pronouns out of your work and have it written in the third person, okay, that is to your advantage as well. So that would be your introduction, all right? Something along those lines. By the time your introduction is finished, you've given me a hook to it, you've made me want to read it. That first sentence has grabbed my attention. I know very early on exactly what it is that you're looking at, and I know how you're going to split that topic up. All right, so I expect then to be talking about reading about these particular areas in the guts of your topic. You with me so far? Okay.
What was that last little bit you just wrote?
Missed drats. Hey?
What was that last little bit you just wrote me?
I don't know, what did I just write there?
That last little paragraph, something like in order to fully investigate this topic. What are you looking at?
Okay, so this is part of the introduction. This is your, like the first bit to draw me in. This is your question, and then this is where you're going.
Okay.
All right, so this is basically the plan that you're using to break your topic up. Okay, your key finding areas.
About key findings, focus questions.
Yeah. Any more questions at the moment then?
No.
I can get rid of that bit. Okay.
That you love when you're halfway through writing something.
Oh, sorry. That's all right. It's on film. You can come back and watch the video because, you know, who wouldn't want to watch a video of me standing up here?
I like it live.
All right. So then we have the guts of it. So the middle section. Key findings. And this is where we cover your focus areas or your key findings in detail. Okay, the way that you do that, you know the key findings planner tool, the one that I've given you a template for, okay? You can use that to plan each of these sections. You've already gone through and gone, okay, what's the pieces of information that I've got that are going to help me answer A? What are the pieces of information that I've got that are going to help me answer B? All right? That tells you what information you're going to need to synthesise, and it gives you your references for your substantiation as well. All right? But what you need to do is work out how you're going to structure it. So if you've got, 5 or 6 or 7 different references that you want to incorporate, what are the 3 or 4 big key themes from all that information? How are you actually going to structure it? Remember that when you divide it up into paragraphs, each paragraph should have its own introduction or topic sentence. Then it's got the discussion of your information. And this is where all the analysis that you have done. And it is referenced and linked to your big topic. last part or the last bit of each of those paragraphs should it's almost like a miniature essay in itself. You start with an introduction in your paragraph, you give me the information and the analysis, and then you sum up again. So the last part of each paragraph should be a summing up sentence, which tidies it up or ties it together. And leads into the next idea or the next paragraph. Okay, so within the essay itself, which has got those three parts, an introduction, a middle and a conclusion, the paragraphs that you use in the middle almost have that same structure. Okay, the first sentence of your paragraph should tell me what that information is going to be about. In the discussion section, so in the middle of the paragraph, is where you're providing me with the details, the analysis, the backup, the references, the substantiation of your ideas. And then at the end of the paragraph, it's a little bit of a kind of a summing up and leading into your next topic or your next paragraph that you're going to be looking at. Okay, make sense so far? None of this should be new to you guys. This is what your English teachers teach you, isn't it? As far as structure and essays and stuff go.
How many of us are still in English?
2. How many years ago did I do English? You know how well I speak English well, and that's questionable at the best of times,
Or
isn't
a
it?
summing up sentence. A summary sentence.
Yeah, okay. See? This is why I don't teach English well.
Don't make a thinking of English.
So I know English, they don't.
Whoa, big dog over here.
Big dog me.
Big dog.
See, how good is that English quarter?
I was part of the group. They said big dog.
Guys, can I rub this out?
No.
Yes.
Calvin, stop talking then.
Baby, dump your head for a second. I'll do that.
Oh my god, I've been raving on for 20 minutes already.
You've been here for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, I'm off.
Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
You
Okay.
start at the top.
I'll start at the top.
I'll
It is filmed though, and I'll put it on the
Take 30
website.
seconds.
It's just a much longer film
I
than
think
you're
you can
used
do
to.
all words.
Okay. So the last part of
Next
your
section.
outcome is the conclusion.
He's done.
Good.
You can take it off now.
Good. The last part of your outcome is the conclusion. So what are you going to tell me in your conclusion?
The answer to the
What I've told you.
question.
The answer to the question. You're going to tell me what it is you've told me. And then you're going to provide me with an answer to the question. Okay. So in your conclusion, provide me with the answer to your big question. So the question that you posed in the introduction, that's the one that you want to resolve in the conclusion, okay? In order to do that, briefly, tell me what you told me. So that means you go back to those key questions or those key findings or those focus questions, all right? And you rehash them very briefly. So I have looked at A and I've discovered that. I looked at B and it became evident that. I looked at C and this was answered in this way. Okay, so you briefly tell me what it is that you've told me. Then resolve your research project question. Okay, so then you resolve it and make sure that that is based on the evidence you presented. Okay, I have before read research project outcomes where students have presented evidence that demonstrates A, B, C and D, and the resolution to their question they said was LMNOP. Okay, they didn't agree with the information that they'd found, but they didn't provide any other alternative until they came to their conclusion and told me that the answer was something completely different. Okay?
No.
Doesn't make sense. If the information that you have presented in your outcome says one thing, then the resolution to your question's got to say the same thing. All right, whether or not you agree with it, because some of you are doing topics that you already have a very strong belief about. All right, you might not believe, or you might not agree with the findings that you have, but if the evidence that you have presented demonstrates A, you can't say that the answer is B. Do you get that? Good. Okay. The only other thing I'll say about the conclusion is make sure you have left enough words to fit it in. Because what is the point of going to all of this work if you have written 2,500 words and the answer to your question is not going to get marked?
Stick a 50 to the USB.
Boxes of chocolates and stuff don't work anymore. Okay, don't think that'd work either somehow. Okay, questions about the conclusion?
None.
None? Anything else there?
No.
What
No?
about the exclusion?
What about the what?
The exclusion.
The exclusion.
Yes.
What do you need to exclude?
Yes.
There are a couple of things that you need to exclude.
Your name.
Did I rub that off before you got to that?
Hold
Get
on.
in the way.
I've got to the last
It's
one.
on the video.
Yeah,
You
shoot.
can get it.
Jesus, shield.
It's on the video.
Sick with this.
Okay.
T-Rex because you. Okay, we can hold hands.
Couple of other things
Anything else?
that I can give you. Now these guys, these are simply tips and hints and things, okay? First one, plan your work. I don't care how good you think you are, it is not possible to sit down in front of a computer and start writing 2,000 words without a really clear idea of where you are going. You need to plan it. At the very least, you should have your question, the key finding or the focus areas that you're going to break it down into, and what you think your conclusion is going to be. At the very least. What I would prefer is that you have your question, your key finding areas, and 2 or 3 areas underneath each of those of what you want to focus on. And that comes from that key findings planner that you guys
And 2 or 3 what?
have done. For each of those key finding areas, a bit of a breakdown of what's got to go into each of those, okay? So that you can shuffle the order of your paragraphs, so that when you're looking at the information that you've got, you can go, right, well, that's going to fit in that bit, that's going to fit in that bit, all right? Plan it.
Yeah.
Don't just try and write it straight away.
Those who do.
The other big thing, people always fall down on this one. Reference as you go. I get so annoyed when someone gives me a piece of work and goes, oh, I'm going to put my references in later. How on earth can I tell you whether, or help you work out whether or not you've got enough substantiation of that section if I don't know where it comes from to start with? Okay? You must reference your work as you go. Callum.
I was just about to say, what if we get the URL with a, just leave it as that? and
As
do it
long as I
after?
know where it's come from, okay? If I know that it's come from a particular source, or if it's just something that you've, developed as an idea from the research that you've done, all right, I need to know the difference between that, okay? If you're not going to give me referenced work to start with, seriously, don't bother giving it to me. So reference it as you go, please. Having said that, if while you're putting this together, you find that there's an area that you need more information or references for, use a placeholder. And what I mean by that, okay, you're writing, the key finding number 2 and you're down to the second paragraph and you think it's going to be on this particular topic, but you're finding that you haven't actually got enough references or enough detail or enough information, okay, give me a little bit of what you do have and then put a note in. I still need to find, you know, an article. I still need survey question to go in here, or, you know, interview still to come. You haven't yet been able to conduct an interview with someone that you want to, but that's an area that you're going to ask them questions on. Put in a placeholder for me so that I know that there's still information coming back in that. All right? So that, you know, you can still go on with the rest of your work and you can still get, you know, 80% of it ready and organised and finished, and I can give you feedback on what is finished and what is done, but you still need to do a little bit of work on a piece. Does that make sense? Good. Okay, the only other thing that I'm going to do is show you a short little YouTube clip about one of my favourite topics. One of my favourite topics. Okay, so proofreading.
Oh, what's that?
Proofreading.
Proofreading. This is what you do before you give me your work.
What education taught them. Who?
Yeah, I can.
Someone grab the lights.
Those who don't
Please.
play games.
It'd be a good idea if I turned the screen on too, wouldn't it? What do I do with that?
No. I wonder if some of the shops and don't take yes.
Thank you. That's right.
Did that come on? Yes.
Where is this coming from? Just like, oh, I know who it is. The next lap sounds like some inspirational bullshit.
Just stuff with that over the phone.
Now you're going to need to listen really carefully.
Are we?
You are. One of the things about proofreading your work is finding all of those words that you have misused in one way, shape or form or the other. Okay? So this is a guy called Taylor Marley, who is a slam poet. And it's
No
called,
idea what that is.
you'll work it out pretty quick. It's called the Impotence of Proofreading.
The impotence of proofreading. Has this ever happened to you? You work very, very hard on a paper for English class and still get a very low grade on it, like a D or even a D equals. And all because you are the liverwurst spoiler in the whale wide word. Yes, proofreading your peppers is a matter of the utmost impotence. Now, this is a problem that affects manly students all over the world. I myself was such a bed spiller once upon a term that my English torturer in my sophomoric year, Mrs. Myth, she said that I was never going to get into a good colleague. And that's all I wanted. That's all any kid wants at that age, just to get into a good colleague. And not just anal community colleague either, because I am not the kind of guy who would be happy at just anal community colleague. I need to be challenged. Challenged menstrually. I need a place that can offer me intellectual stimulation. So I know this probably makes me sound like a stereo, but I really felt that I could get into an ivory legal colleague. So if I did not improvement, then gone would be my dream of going to Harvard, jail, or prison. You know, in prison, New Jersey. So I got myself a spell checker and I figured I was on Sleazy Street. But there are several mistakes that a spell checker can't catch. For instance, if you accidentally leave out word, your spell checker won't put it in you. And God, for billing purposes only, you should have serial problems with Tory spelling. Your spell check-off may end up using a word that you had absolutely no detention of using, because, I mean, what do you want it to do? You know? No, it only does what you tell it to do. You're the one who's sitting in front of the computer screen with your hand on the mouth going clit, clit, clit. Just goes to show you how embargo one careless little clit of the mouth can be, which reminds me of this one time during my junior mint. The teacher took the paper that I had written on a sale of 2 titties. And no, I'm serial. I am serial. She read it out loud in front of all of my assmates. It was quite possibly one of the most humidifying experiences I have ever had, being laughed at like that publicly. So do yourself a flavor and follow these 2 Pisces of advice. 1, there is no prostitute for careful editing of your own work. No prostitute whatsoever. And 3, when it comes to proofreading, the red penis, your friend, spank you.
There you go.
I hope no one was offended by that. But do you get the point?
Yeah.
Okay? Your spell checker is not going to pick up a lot of word substitutions, which is what he was very good at pointing out there. All right? You must proofread your work. And seriously, sitting there reading off the screen is not going to pick up half of the mistakes. What you need to do is print your work out, find yourself somewhere like your bedroom late at night with the door closed so no one can hear you, and read it out aloud to yourself. Because when you read it off the screen or you read it in your head, your mind reads or your brain reads what it thinks it should see. Okay? If you say it out loud and you read it out loud to yourself, it tricks your brain into reading what is physically on the piece of paper. So you might not pick up the fact that you have written one word twice, the, okay? Or you might not pick up that you have skipped word. You might not pick up the missing word, all right? But when you read it out aloud, you will pick that up. So before you give me your draft, it needs to be the absolute best that it can be, all right? As it goes, each piece takes me a good couple of hours to get through anyway. And if I spend most of my time working on your grammar and your spelling, then I'm not focused on how you can actually improve your grade by looking at things like your synthesis and your substantiation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it is highly impotent to proofread your work before you give it to me. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope no one was offended by that. Done.